welcome everybody. Our 24th guitar Q&A live stream right here on YouTube 24. That means a big one's coming up, number 25. Hello, everybody. I see Jerry, Bruce. I see Stephen. I see Kira. Hey, everybody. Let's get to some questions, right? That's what we're doing here. We're answering your questions. Don't forget, when you ask your question, put a couple question marks in front of the question, just like Bruce did. Let's get right down to it. Why not, right? Bruce from Sydney, Australia, is asking, he says, so much good guitar playing is about feel. Can you talk a bit about bringing feel into strumming? Excellent question. Let's do it. You will hear people talk about playing with feel, right? A strum pattern has a certain feel to it. And hello, music fan. And what does that mean, a certain feel? You want to sound like a human, not like a robot, right? Playing something with a nice human feel absolutely involves having a light touch with your picking hand. This goes for playing with an actual plastic flat pick. It goes for playing with your bare fingers, having a light touch. I find any excuse I can to talk about playing with a light touch with your picking hand, and this is as good an excuse as any. Playing with feel partly involves playing some notes louder and some notes softer, some chords louder, some chords softer, right? To create texture. You use robots as an example to say, oh, you don't want to sound robotic, right? In this day and age, I bet robots sound great. So I don't want to underestimate what a robot can do in 2023. But let's give you an example of what it might sound like, what it does sound like, to strum certain things louder, certain things softer in real time. I've got an E minor chord. Now, without a doubt, you can hear that fat string banging away. My open sixth E string. Remember, biggest string, biggest number, right? The sixth string is the fat one. I'm hitting that note hard. I'm squeezing the pick a little bit tighter, not crazy, but a little bit tighter. Then I loosened my grip on the pick for that nice little light down up strumming. Okay, so tight grip, not too tight, but a tight grip is going to get a louder sound. I want that note to really, I want to punch it. And then I'm loosening my grip to get a softer sound when I do that little strum, that little down up strumming. So okay, so there's an example of playing something with a certain feel to it, right? A certain texture. In a way, it almost sounds like two guitar players playing at once, sort of, if you know what I mean, right? So is that an example of feel? Yeah, that would be an example of playing something with a certain kind of feel. And I'm very much in control of that feel because I'm making a decision to hit the fat string by itself with a nice twang, right? And then get into those lighter strings. I'll put that strum pattern, what I just did, I'll put that in the description. I try to do that, as you guys know, with these live stream videos. When I do a specific example, I typically will tab that out in the description of the video when I timestamp it. Wish You Were Here would be an example of a song that goes sort of from loud to soft, right? That's nice and loud, but then that kind of casual strumming is there to fill in that space, okay? So that's an example of a real life song. Seems like everyone knows Wish You Were Here, right? I have a video out there somewhere on how to play Wish You Were Here. I probably won't put that in the time-stamped description of this video because I have a video out there on my channel. So those are some of the things that come to mind right away, Bruce, in terms of playing with feel. Having a light touch and then being able to choose to play certain notes with a heavier touch, but like I said, in real time. So you're, in a way, you could say you're almost alternating back and forth between between both, to create this textured effect. For sure, no one's going to say a guitar player has a great feel if the guitar player doesn't have the capability, the sensitivity of playing louder and softer, also known as dynamics, playing with dynamics, louder and softer. So I would go as far as to say playing with good feel is directly related to your picking hand and has much less to do with your fretting hand. Does that make sense? In a way you are feeling the guitar, I don't want to sound too cute, but you're feeling the guitar with your pick or your bare fingers. Oh, when I do, my students bring things to my attention that I might take for granted. I'm going to do the landslide finger picking pattern. It's a great fallback pattern for finger picking anytime a guitar teacher wants to illustrate something. I'm going to stick with the C chord. Okay. Not every note I'm about to play is equally loud or soft. I'm playing a 7-note repeating pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. But for sure, if I stop talking for a minute, you'll notice that some of these notes are louder than others, and that creates a feel. Right? So that's the kind of thing, excuse me while I close out of this crazy pop-up that I can't escape. That's the kind of thing that a student will point out to me, like, well, when you play it, it sound. How are you doing that? What are you doing that makes it sound that way? And I realize, oh yeah, of course, I'm playing with a certain feel, and I should mention that, or when I illustrate it for a student, I should not do that. If I'm telling someone, hey, here's a 7-note pattern, maybe I should make everything smooth and even and equal, so to speak. Otherwise, they're going to call me out. They're going to say, wait, but what are you doing? Or, if you want to really get into the nitty gritty, okay, which of those 7 notes, which are the louder ones, which are the softer ones? Okay, so again, feel, I'm going to say off the top of my head, directly relates to the touch of your bare fingers or the pick, how loud or soft. That's a great question, Bruce. And, that's the kind of thing that's going to twirl around in my head for the next 7 days until the next live stream. So those are my initial thoughts. Hello, Kristen. Hello, DG from Scotland. DG, I see your question. Hello, Susan. Hello, Val. Cubic D from Honolulu, Hawaii. Oh, wow. Awesome. One of the many states I've never been, and I look forward to getting to Hawaii someday. I don't know how. But Cubic D, someday. Scott Rhodes, he played guitar with a couple of his kids just before this. Awesome. Okay, DG has a great question. DG says, what is your favorite acoustic guitar and why? I have my Martin, as you guys know. This happens to be a Martin D16. D as in dreadnought. 16 meaning mahogany back and sides, scalloped bracing on the inside to kind of lighten things up a little bit. Tortoiseshell pickguard, purely aesthetic kind of deal. At the marketing around this guitar, back when I got it in the early 90s, called the neck something like a low profile neck or something like that. Maybe just the neck shape was a little bit thinner. So I like this guitar a lot. If I had to do it over again, I may not buy another. I might have told myself, you don't really need a dreadnought guitar. It's a lot of volume. It sounds great. I love this guitar, but I don't personally, I haven't found the need for such a big bodied guitar in my own experience. Recording videos, I've occasionally got into some distortion unintentionally because the mic has been too hot, and this guitar is a loud guitar. So I'm a fan of Martin guitars, but in hindsight, I might have got maybe what they call the 000 size Martin guitar. but I'm a Martin guy. Martin just have always felt right. And then I have my other acoustic guitar. And this was a present, so it has sentimental value. A Harmony Sovereign. I've never quite established what the year was on this, but an even bigger body, slightly larger than the Dreadnought. It's enormous, but I love it. It feels good, sounds great, and has the sentimental value because it was a gift from a friend. But now to get to your question, I've played some pretty cool acoustic guitars. I was spoiled because for about 12 years, I worked in an acoustic music store. Hog-Eye Music, Evanston, Illinois. It's still there. If you're in the Chicago area, Evanston, Illinois, stop by and tell Jim I said hi. Hog-Eye Music, Hogeye, all acoustic instruments. And I worked there for 12 years, and I barely knew how to play the guitar when I started working there. So that was a huge part of my education, was everything that came through that store, whether it's players or teachers or books and material. But my point is, we had some great guitars, both high-end, expensive Breedloves and Santa Cruz guitars and Martin guitars, and then a huge variety of used stuff. So I got exposed to tons of great guitars. I was thinking about a few weeks ago, I kind of went off on Dave Matthews and the tone he gets from his plugged-in acoustic electric guitar. And I thought, geez, why do I have such a reaction to poor Dave Matthews? He's a perfectly talented guy. And I thought to myself, as he was becoming super successful in the 90s, was when I was spending day after day around beautiful, beautiful acoustic guitars, including acoustic guitars that were not particularly expensive, nice used Yamaha guitars. We had a Takamine Dreadnought guitar that was sort of the house guitar. So I taught a lot using that Takamine guitar because it was always sitting right there. Great guitar. So that when poor Dave Matthews, he came along exactly when I was really beginning to educate myself as to how acoustic guitars sounded different from each other. And then when I heard his tone, I thought, you got to be kidding me. That's a step backwards. Anyways, let's table that discussion. Poor Dave Matthews. But yeah, Yamaha makes great stuff. I'm a fan. The older they are, the better. I love old Yamaha guitars. So DG, that's another one that comes to mind. Santa Cruz and Breedlove. There was a brand. We only had a couple of these guitars while I was there. The Petros brand. I don't know why it popped in my head. Petros, Petros. We had one Martin guitar that was, I forget if they officially called it a custom shop guitar, but it basically was a Martin custom shop. It was a real one-of-a-kind guitar. And I can't remember too much about it, except it was very much in the style of an early Martin guitar. Very small body, quirky headstock. Anyways, super expensive. Whatever passed for super expensive, a couple $1,000 back then. And let me tell you, you could hear it. You could hear it was a special guitar. When anybody, but especially a major guitar company, has access to lots of great wood and great craftspeople, when they put their mind to it, they can make beautiful stuff. So it happened to be the Martin company. Could have been some other company. But I remember hearing that guitar and thinking, that is why that guitar is X amount of money. Like, wow, is that a special guitar? And one of our regular customers bought it like that. I think he played it for about 10 seconds and bought it. So DG, there are obviously plenty of good acoustic guitars out there. And I'm sure I've only played, some of the brands. You guys heard me say before, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the Taylor Guitar Company, great instruments. Taylor guitars have never felt right to me. And we are allowed to have an opinion about that. You're allowed to do it too. You might say, Fender Stratocaster doesn't work for me. Gibson Les Paul, doesn't work for me. You're allowed to say that, right? So hey, for what it's worth, Taylor guitars. I know a lot of you guys have Taylor guitars, beautiful Taylors that sound great, and that's awesome. It's terrific company. I've never heard anything bad about Taylor guitars. In fact, just so you know how much I respect them, I'll tell you a story. the Taylor company did a cool thing, could be 25 years ago now, where they took a pallet from their loading dock and used that wood to make a guitar just to prove that they were that good. And apparently the guitar is gorgeous and beautiful and sounded fantastic. And it was made from a pallet, you know? So, hey, props to them. But sometimes a certain feel of the guitar just doesn't work for you. And that's, you know, hey, make shopping easier. I've never spent a whole lot of time shopping for a Taylor guitar. I don't need it. So those are my two acoustics, the Martin D16. And by the way, one reason I got this particular Martin, I had been playing an old Gibson small body acoustic, and it was just the opposite of this in so many ways. You didn't get that big warm sound. It was really, it'd be a great finger picker, you know. And it just, the guitar wasn't working for me anymore. I'd been playing for about 4 years, give or take. And that the Gibson, that it just wasn't the sound. I mean, I would play a big chord on a Martin guitar or any big dreadnought guitar, and the sound was so warm and rich. I think, oh, my guitar doesn't do that. So a big Martin D like this was barely in my price range, and it was so refreshing compared to that little Gibson I had. So no regrets. I essentially sold that and bought this. And but like I said, the dreadnought size, it's a lot of guitar, a lot of volume, not ideal for recording, not necessary for what I ended up doing, which is playing a lot of solo gigs in bars and coffee shops and stuff. You just don't need a big old guitar like that. But great guitar. It's like a D18, by the way. It's a D18 with a few different features, you know, but basically a mahogany. Okay, thank you for hearing me out. I'm scrolling for some more questions, and I see some more friends. Brian from Scotland. Hey, Brian, welcome. Scott Rhodes has a Martin 000. Beautiful. Stephen Mannion's asking a very interesting question. Stephen Mannion says, what's the first thing you would strive for a new student to nail down, you know, right from the beginning? Excellent question. Let's say what I wouldn't worry about. I wouldn't worry about chords. Of course, it depends on the student, right? But I'm guessing that most of you are adults, according to your driver's licenses. Most of you are adults. So let's narrow it down to an adult student. I teach a lot of beginning adults, a lot. When I have a beginning adult, if I can get them out the door with something like this, I'm a happy guy. Right? Good old Muddy Waters, right? Essentially like his Mannish Boy song, right? I have a video on that. I think I call it the classic blues riff. It's one of my long videos from the early days. One of the videos that was filmed for public access TV and then I uploaded to YouTube, the classic blues riff. I will put a link to that video in the description of this video. Okay, so that's like a sweet little riff, does not involve chords. You know, as long as you can read tab, spend 5 minutes explaining how to read tab, okay. And then that's almost like a test. Like, well, if you can read tab, then you should be able to figure that out. I mean, from the tab, you should be able to play it. And then you go home and practice it and do it 1,000 times, right? But it's such a satisfying thing. So there's one example of a concrete thing that, you know, within the first lesson, I mean, that's not a big ask. Doesn't have to sound perfect. Just so you know, my thought process is comprehension. Did I explain myself, and does the student, you know, comprehend what I'm talking about? Did I do my job? So comprehension is the first thing. Second thing is, can my student read it? You know, because I want to leave a paper trail. They might think they know it, but 2 days go by, and I want to make sure that they don't have to go by their memory. I want to know if they can read it. So can they read, you know, the tab or whatever? Third question is, can they play it slowly, accurately? I mean, just as slow as molasses. That's okay. You know, can they play it? Do they basically get the idea? Then I step away. I'm done. Go home for a week. Work on it. You know, now that wouldn't be the only thing we do in the first lesson, but that's an example of something. I call it the Muddy Waters blues riff, but like I said, the video is called something like the classic blues riff or something like that. let me think of something else that comes to mind. Like I said, not chords, possibly a scale, maybe the, that nice pentatonic scale. And again, we'd be going for comprehension, not speed, but remember the open position G major pentatonic, also known as the E minor pentatonic, starting on the 6th fat string, 0-3, 0-2, 0-2, 0-2, 0-3, 0-3. You guys know that one. Possibly that's something I might throw in. That it's a good thing to learn right away, because that opens so many doors. Plus, it's more experience reading tab. There's so much we can do with that, the exercise that I call the daily exercise, because I'm an optimist, the exercise where you start on the open skinny first string, you go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and every time you fret a note, you leave the finger down. So I end up, here I have all 4 of my fingers on the skinny first string, and each finger is at a different fret. Index at first fret, middle, second, ring, third, pinky, fourth, right? And my thumb is essentially pointing up towards the ceiling. It's just a standard chromatic exercise. Every guitar teacher will give this to you sooner or later. And you move to the second string and repeat the same thing on the second string. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Gets a little bit harder as you get over to the fat string, because you got to reach around more. So that's like a nice little warm-up exercise that is great for a beginner to get their hand, accustomed to this brand new task. Because as you guys know, if you remember way back when you first start playing, all of a sudden your fretting hand is being asked to do this step it never had to do before. And the strings hurt, right? I hear a honk from a fire truck. So that thing, which I call the daily exercise, you might see it described as a chromatic exercise or something else. That's something that, and just to give you one more thing, Stephen, for a new, because the way I like how you asked this question, you said the first thing you would strive for a new student to nail down. Maybe, because, there's, after a few lessons, potentially we could get into some chords, right? Why not? You don't have to wait too long to get into chords. Maybe I'm gonna do a little teaser here. Maybe I'd have them play this song, which is going to be our play along song at about the midway point. I might, teach them this song and then have them work on it. Good old name that tune. The song. Now, for beginner, that is not an easy tune. It's easy to understand, right? You guys have heard me talk about something that's clear. Your task is very clear for Free Fallin' by Tom Petty. Doesn't mean it's easy. I've seen people who need a bit of practice on that before everything sounds good. I'll tell you right now, though, what most people struggle with, I'm talking about, beginners, that first D chord, they unintentionally dampen out that skinny first string, which is not good. It's especially not good for free falling, because the melody, so to speak, is on the skinny string. We want to hear that da da. We want to hear that, That's the melody, you could say, of free falling. And most beginners don't get a good clear sound in the beginning on a D major chord. Things sound good until they get to that skinny string, Anyways, Free Falling is the kind of thing that, if a student is okay with that song, and that I would say, okay, let's do Free Falling. Within, a few lessons, you should be, getting there with Free Falling. Maybe not as fast as the recording, but the student will comprehend it. The student can play it. It's just that maybe getting to the A chord is kind of tricky, Okay, hope that answered your question, Stephen. Those are some of the things that come to mind. I've done this long enough that I have an unwritten agenda in my mind that you're making me think about. What do I do with my first students? Because when in the heat of the moment, in the fog of war, I do come up with all this stuff, you know, my bag of tricks. Here's something that occurred to me, you guys. For better, for worse, since day one, I was treating each student as an individual, which sounds like, well, obvious. It's also exhausting because I didn't have a text. I didn't have a single agenda, you know, and that means I was sort of reinventing the wheel with every new student, and that that was tricky for a while in my early days. That was tricky because everyone's so different, you know, and especially if a student, as I got to know a student, found out they were into X or into Y or into Z, I think, wow, I'm not going to show them what I showed the last student because they're into something else. Yeah, so that definitely had that attitude, trying to treat everyone as an individual, right? It led me to come up with a ton of material, so that no matter who walked the door, walked through the door, I had something